millionaires, friends, insiders, campaign contributors, and cronies. He said he was going to drain the swamp, but it seems to think that the way to do that is by filling it with even bigger swamp creatures. President-elect Trump may try to distract people across the country with these silly tweets and absurd comments and fights with news outlets and the cast of Hamilton, but we are going to stay focused on what truly matters. We are going to stand up and fight for the families that we represent. And we're going to do everything we can to learn as much as we can about what these cabinet secretaries would do and who they would truly work for. So I'm proud to stand here today with my colleagues to announce that we are responding to President-elect Trump's record of secrecy and cronyism with a call for increased transparency for his cabinet nominees. If he's going to nominate billionaires with so many potential conflicts of interest for an administration that is already shaping up to be a major issue at the top, we want to be able to scrutinize them even more than usual. Now, this should not be a problem for any nominee who has nothing to hide. If they have no conflict of interest, they have nothing to worry about by letting us review their tax returns. If they have no shady potential conflicts of interest and cronyism under the rug. I know many of them here opposed President-elect Trump when he was a candidate, and many of them came out against his decision to hide his tax returns. Now is their chance to weigh in on the right side and stand with us and the middle class. Thank you. And with that, let me turn it over to Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Senator Murray, and Senator Stabenow and Senator Murray have made many important points. So let me just see if I can supplement what they've said and touch on particularly some issues relating to the Finance Committee, because this obviously is about taxes. First of all, this is a roadmap for each committee chair to increase the openness and transparency among senior government officials. It is a model rule change based on a proven vetting system that includes reviewing 3 years of tax returns. It will apply automatically to senior nominees, including the cabinet, and committees that have the discretion, should they choose to, exercise it to include other individuals. And here is my bottom line. Government officials don't get a free pass to flout the law. They don't get a free pass to flout the tax laws or abuse loopholes or hide money in shelters. When working Americans say the system is rigged, that kind of tax trickery is rig the government. As committee leaders, we know that vetting nominees is one crucial step in the vigorous oversight of a new administration. You hear folks talk a lot about checks and balances. This is a prime example. We take our nominees seriously, and it's our view that we can't do our jobs fully without all the information. Now, for 20 years, staff on both sides of the aisle. If an issue comes up, it's brought to the attention of committee members in a way that respects confidentiality. If needed, information is released to the public in the form of a detailed memo. The tax returns themselves are not made public in order to ensure confidentiality of the individuals. Our process has surfaced issues with nominees on both sides. Democrats and Republicans took this job very seriously when President Obama came into office, and the buildings, and I am confident that committees can handle it. We're talking about a proven tool that both sides of the Finance Committee rely on when we vet our nominees to Treasury, Health and Human Services, and the U.S. Trade Representative, for example. I cannot for the life of me see a reason why there ought to be a lower standard for the people in the highest positions of power in crucial areas such as national defense, education, law enforcement, and other areas. So I think Senator Stabenow, Senator Murray, we can all take questions.
Thank families in North Dakota, and so I think that's fine. Should talk with her more about it, but we certainly are open and will all be open to talking about ways to actually and support working people.
Senator Stabenow, so a lot of the members are from the House and the Senate that are moving on to these teams. So what does this mean going forward as you try to get things accomplished here on the Hill?
Moving on to what team? I'm sorry, I'm missing them.
So there's a few members from the House that were covered.
Oh,
as his team now as vice chairs or executive committee members, some in the Senate. So what does that mean as they work with him there, but as you try to work with them here on the Hill too?
Well, I think the most important thing from this process is that we will be looking at the positions that they are being nominated for and making decisions about whether, in fact, it is good for the American public or whether it leads to a rigging of the system that Donald Trump said he was not going to do if he was elected president. So we'll work step by step with each of these individuals. A lot of serious issues have been raised about those that are being nominated right now, but one of the most important pieces of making decisions is whether or not there are conflicts of interest. And given the billionaires and the multimillionaires that are being nominated for the cabinet, clearly common sense would say there are potential conflicts of interest that would affect their ability to close loopholes that take jobs overseas or to be able to do things that are actually on behalf of working people rather than keeping the system rigged. Their colleagues have expressed support for this kind of policy. I know in the Agriculture Committee this is something that we can ask for, but it's not required, and so I will our rules to require it, and it will be part of the way we make decisions.
Let me touch on the Finance Committee with respect to your question. Senator Grassley, for example, and you already heard about the fact that this is a practice in the Finance Committee to review it. Senator Grassley said in 2009, by ensuring that these individuals are paying their taxes, something which they should be doing anyway, we're ensuring they are, at a minimum, complying with the rules that in many cases they will help create and administer. I think that is a very clear statement by Senator Grassley on exactly why the kind of idea and is in the public interest. And what we're basically saying is the kind of approach taken in a handful of committees ought to be applied across the board.
But if the tax forms aren't forthcoming, is that a reason to vote against somebody in and of itself?
Well, we're not going to go forward with the vetting process if we don't have them. I mean, that's essentially what we're saying, is we're saying that we ought to have a rule that says you don't go forward until you have these. Rich?
People talk about conflicts of interest. There is, of course, a law that already requires disclosure, public disclosure on that. Is there something that's insufficient about that disclosure, or would you like some change to make some legislative changes to what people, both nominees, candidates,
to follow? It is relevant whether or not folks are following all of the tax rules. I also think, as a member of the Finance Committee, that's very relevant as we are looking at how don't believe that the folks who have been benefiting from a rigged system ought to now be the ones who oversee a system that continues to be rigged. And we're committed to making sure that we change those rules so that working people actually get a fair shot.
Let me add one point to what Senator Stabenow has touched on, and I think very well. With the president-elect flouting a 40-year bipartisan tradition of disclosure and transparency, we think it's more important than ever to ensure that senior officials across government aren't operating under a different tax code than everyone else. I think all of you know that I introduced before the election the Presidential Tax Transparency Act. I intend to reintroduce that bill when we come back in January, an updated version, because obviously President Trump has not yet been sworn in. But I want it understood that just like nominees have to resolve laws should be free from scrutiny about the nominee's own compliance with the tax laws. We just think this is an important step in the vetting process. This is right at the heart of checks and balances. That is our obligation, and we have certainly shown in the Finance Committee and the committees that have used it in the past that we can work in a bipartisan way, and it's in the public interest.
Yes. Sorry to get really in the weeds here, but
go ahead.
You do have a leverage point here, and it's the organizing resolution that has to formally establish the new committees every 2 years. Is this, and it's a filibusterable motion. How far are you willing to take this particular fight, and is it something that we're going to see on the floor in early January?
Well, I think at this point we're talking to Republican colleagues because this is basically in the interest of good government and transparency and accountability. We'll see what happens, and then we'll make a decision from there.
Thank you.
What I think you would agree is a related topic, President-elect Trump is going to be in neighboring Ohio tonight, touting his preservation of 1,000 jobs in a carrier there. I'm wondering if you and any of your colleagues have any thoughts on his apparent actions to keep jobs at that company in the United States and his celebration of that.
Well, certainly it's always good when we are able to keep American jobs. I understand there's still 1,000 that will be leaving. The first question I had in the paper today, it said that the state was going to be giving an additional $7 million to carrier to stay. I'm not sure why Governor Pence in his position didn't do that earlier so that there wasn't so much worry and stress on behalf of all of those families. It seems like that's something that could have been done before. But certainly, I'm all for doing everything we can to keep jobs. I thank President Obama for keeping almost 1 million American jobs in manufacturing because of what we did for the auto industry and auto manufacturing and the millions of jobs that have been created in the last 8 years. And we're going to stay laser focused on creating